has been said, the topic I'm speaking on is opportunities and approaches to building academia-industry collaboration and partnership. There's the content we'll be following: introduction. I'll take a look at the academia-industry collaboration vis-a-vis partnership. And then we look at the differences between university and industry. And then we look at industry categorization. I'll also give us some perspectives on the sectoral groups of MAN, that is Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. Then their approaches to building the academia industry collaboration and partnership. And then the forms. There are some forms of this collaboration and partnership. We look at the models, the academia industry models, and some case studies, successful academia industry case studies globally, in Africa, in Nigeria. And then we take a look at the covenant example. Then I'll be ending with rewarding opportunities in academia industry collaboration and partnership. And then I'll take a few recommendations and then I conclude. So by way of introduction, when we talk about the academia, we are referring to a community such as the university that is concerned with the pursuit of education, research, and scholarship. And of course, when we are talking about an industry, we are dealing with a group of businesses or manufacturers that produce goods and services. It is imperative that we understand the differences between the academia and the industry in order to identify the approaches we need to building the collaboration and partnership between them. And of course, the rewarding opportunities that are available for the advancement of knowledge and a society. So obviously, there are some examples, successful examples, where the academia has collaborated and partnered with the industry. And so my take is that the standalone institutions and industries are missing opportunities for value addition and market-tested skills transfer. Again, we have a few of the town-gown relationships in Nigeria. They do exist, but I think there's need for us to do more. There has to be a deeper handshake between the academia and the industry in Nigeria for knowledge creation, for dissemination of knowledge, and then, of course, the application of same for societal good. So let's take a look at collaboration versus partnership. When we talk about collaboration contextually, what we mean is a joint effort between the academia and the industry in order to achieve some specific goals, usually in research and development. And the focus actually is on knowledge sharing. They share knowledge, they share resources like facilities, like equipment, and of course, expertise to advance scientific and technological innovation. Usually in collaborations, they are often project-based and usually will last for a specific duration. It could be short-term, it could be medium-term, depending on the scope of the project. The terms are typically flexible and you can adjust these terms as the project progresses. We have such examples like joint research projects between university labs and corporate research and development department, student internships, and academic consultancy in industrial projects. But when we're dealing with partnership, what we mean in a partnership is a long-term alliance between the academia and the industry on multiple projects and usually or initiatives in alignment with the strategic goals of the partners. A partnership is usually formalized through renewable agreement. It can be renewed, and then it involves substantial commitment and engagement of resources. Partnership usually involves formal structures and arrangement with clearly defined goals, roles, responsibilities, and expectations for the parties concerned. Some examples could be like long-term research and development agreement between industries and multinational corporations. You can also have establishment of innovation centers or laboratories jointly funded and managed by academic institutions and industry partners. You can also have things like educational programs and curricular development in partnership with the industry. So let me now look at the differences between a university and an industry. In terms of the mission, a typical university is meant to create and share knowledge. And while the industry, what do? They capture and retain knowledge. The university's mission is to advance knowledge and, of course, to impart to students. But in the case of the industry, their mission is actually to make profit, and they do that by producing goods and services to meet the needs of their customers and, of course, create value for their shareholders. Let's look at the structure, the organizational structure. Of course, the universities are organized into faculties, colleges, as the case may be, and departments, and are led by academic officials such as the chancellors, the vice chancellors, the deans of colleges and faculties, depending on our universities, and then the heads of department. But in terms of the industries, we have a kind of hierarchical structure with a clear chain of command, and they are led by executives such as the chief executive officers, chief operating officers, and then the managers. And typically in a university, in a university system, it is run by committee. It is a committee system that is used for decision making. While in the industry, it is a top-down approach. Decision making is top-down in the industry and focusing on efficiency and profitability. In terms of engagement, the university engages in teaching, research, and publication in scholarly outlets and community service. And then the faculty members and students are engaged in theoretical and applied research, often with long-term goals. The industry engages in production, marketing, sales, and customer services. And of course, the employees in the industry work on product development, manufacturing, quality control, and market analysis with short to medium-term results. Let's look at the funding. In a typical university, funding comes from tuition, government grants, or maybe donations and research grants. For example, the public universities receive funding from the federal government or the state government, as the case may be, while the private universities rely on tuition and private contributions. Industries are funded by sales, revenue, investments, and loans. Industries generate income through the sales of goods and services and also receive funding from industrialists, shareholders, and banks. Let's look at the societal impact. A typical university contributes to society by educating students, advancing knowledge and innovation through research. Indeed, they serve as centers of intellectual development, leading to social and economic mobility. Industries impact society by producing goods and services that the consumer needs. They provide employment, they drive economic growth, they contribute to technological advancement, enhancing social and economic policies. And in terms of collaboration and partnership, the universities collaborate with other academic institutions, governmental agencies, and industries, leading to joint research projects, technological transfer, and internships for students. And the industries also collaborate with universities, research institutions, etc., resulting in product development, as the case may be. Let me take a look at the industry categorization. How do we categorize the industry? We have this sectoral categorization. The first one is the primary sector. In the primary sector, this is involved in extracting raw materials from nature. And so you have areas like agriculture, fishing, forestry, mining as part of this primary sector. And then for the secondary sector, we have the manufacture, Or these are the sectors where we have goods, finished goods being manufactured from raw materials. So you have manufacturing industries, construction industries, utilities, etc. And then there's the one we call tertiary sector. These ones, they provide services to consumers and businesses. So you have retailers, hospitality industry, healthcare industry, financial services, transportation, information technology, entertainment and media, and of course, education. We also have the quaternary sector. This is purely knowledge-based, where you have research and development, information services, the ICTs of this world, the biotechnology of this world, aerospace. And then we have the quinary sector. This is human services, like the governmental agencies, social assistance agencies, education, and research. Having done that, let's now zero down to what MAN, that is the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, the kind of sectoral groups that they have in MAN. In MAN's context, they have these sectoral groups. They have the food, beverages, and tobacco sectoral group. They have the chemical and pharmaceuticals group, domestic and industrial plastics, foam and rubber group, basic metal, iron and steel and fabricated metal products sectoral group. They have the textiles, the wearing apparel, carpet, leather, and leather footwear group. They have the pulp, paper, and paper products, printing and publishing products group. They have electrical, electronics products sectoral group. They have wood products and furniture group, non-metallic minerals products sectoral group, and of course, the motor vehicle and miscellaneous assembly product sectoral group. So these are the categorizations, the sectoral groups that we have, that the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria has. Let me now go to the approaches to building the academia-industry collaboration and partnership. So to start with, there has to be an identification of the common goals and interests. And so we need to start from there. There has to be that understanding. There has to be an identification of the common goals and interest between the industry and the academia or the university, as the case may be. And there's need to have a clear understanding or establish a clear communication channel or channels between the academia and the industry. Very clear communication channels has to be in place. And then there has to be this development of trust and mutual respect. It's a win-win situation. There has to be the development of trust and mutual respect. And then we need to facilitate networking, very key, networking and relationship building. And then there's need to identify funding and resource opportunities. As we begin to network, you identify the funding and resource opportunities. Then develop collaborative and partnership research projects. And then you facilitate the technological transfer and, of course, commercialization. You promote industry engagement in education. And then establish collaborative partnership research centers. I'll be saying more on this as we continue in this presentation. And then you adapt and evolve over time. You now have that distinct relationship between the industry and the academia. So let me quickly look at the forms of academia industry collaboration and partnership. The forms. The four I'm giving here are the basic forms. So for example, we have the research and development collaboration, and usually this is the key between the two partners. Research and development collaboration. We also have industry involvement in curriculum development. You know, there are skills gaps in our curricula, if we must say the truth. You can imagine somebody who is studying computer science now, for example. You can't be talking about Fortran that I did more than 30 years ago as an undergrad. You can't be talking about Fortran and, you know, all of those things now. We have since moved on. Several different programs are now in place. So we need to deal with the skill set, the gaps that are in the skills set, looking at what the industries are doing currently, and then we adapt. So there could be that industry involvement in curriculum development. And of course, internship programs. Times were that we had very effective internship programs. But these days, I wonder how many universities actually even go out to supervise the student on sideways, for example, or internship programs. We hardly do that, but I'll give some case studies of my university as we go on in this presentation. So there's need to have these internship programs in place where our students go to have practical knowledge of what happens in the industry, bridging the theory practical gap in our universities. Then there's also the form where you have the CSR, that's the corporate social responsibility motivated development programs, where the industries are giving back to the society. So these are some of the major forms of academia, industry collaboration, and partnership. Let me take a look at the kinds of research between the academia and the industry. You could have joint research where the academia and the industry, they come together to have joint research on an identified area of interest, It can also be a commissioned research, where, for example, you have endowment of chairs, professorial chairs, for example. It is being commissioned, and then persons, are given that chair, and then they can now facilitate the resources or the research in the areas that have been identified. It can also be in terms of donation for research. An industry can, donate to a particular university, fund particular research endeavors in those universities. It can also be technical consulting. I know our colleagues in the academia, we have many of us who are consultants to the industries. And so these are some of the kinds of research areas that you can have between the academia and the industry. Let me now take a look at the avenues for research engagement. How do we in the academia engage the industry? How do we engage the industrialist? Many times we don't take advantage of the professional associations that we have. So when we have meetings of professional associations, it is one of the major avenues for research engagement where we can meet the industrialist. So it will be needful for us to attend such meetings, and then we meet them, we interact with them, And then there's another aspect, volunteering roles. It's not every time we look for money. There are times you need to give back, and then eventually you get some gains in the process. So you can volunteer to have some roles in our different organizations or endeavors or associations, as the case may be. And then networking, this is key. Networking, that phone call could be the thing that could break the ice. Making that phone call to that industrialist, to that COO, to that CEO, to that manager could be one of the things that could bring the research engagement that we are talking about. And then conferences, having conferences is not just about going to critique. It's also about getting to know persons, colleagues in the different areas that we're engaged in. So we do a lot of partnership and collaboration in the course of conferences. And then trade shows where industries are showing forth their product. Let's always be involved in the academia as well. And then we can have targeted publications. In the academia, we can target the industrialist by having some publications that are targeted towards some particular areas of interest or industries that we are having in mind. And then how about multidisciplinary research topics? These days, it's not about just bringing a topic that will be identified in a particular area alone. It's good to have multidisciplinary research topics when we're even talking about engaging the industries. And then newsletters, we can have newsletters in our different academia, different universities, where we now let the industrialists also have access to these newsletters, including innovation updates. If you're involved in some manufacturing, if you're involved in some innovative product, let the world know about it. Let the industrialists know about it. You can never tell. And that reminds me, many times in our different industries, we put all of the researches that have been done over the years, all of our projects, we just put them in the shelves. And you may never know that some of these industries could be looking for opportunities to get recommendations from those projects. And so all of those theses, all of those dissertations, all of those project reports that we are keeping in our shelves could be answers to problems or challenges in the industry. And then about report, the report could be annual report or whatever report it is, telling us, selling the things that are being done in the academia to the industrialist. Let me move on to research agreement process. This is important as we engage in the research partnership with the industries. The starting point is the research idea. It is not actually the money. Many times we miss it. Money will come, but the starting point is the idea. Do you have a research idea? And this research idea should not just be a one-directional approach. It should be something that is multidisciplinary, multidimensional. Many times industries will be more interested in such ideas that can cut across many areas. So we start with a research idea, and then we go into preparation. And here we are talking about internal controls, internal processes, budgeting, and all of those internal things we do in our different universities when we are now talking about the research agreement process. And then after that, we now negotiate. That is when you talk about the funding, the honoraria, and all of those other things. We now negotiate. Things like legalities, legal issues will be coming on board before the contract award. And of course, the contract will have definite clauses on the expectations from the academia or those that are involved, the principal investigators and the rest of them. And then you go into the real research, go to the field, and then you get the result. And this result will lead to publications in the scholarly outlets and even letting the people to know what has been done. Although like I said when we started, industries would like to also actually keep the result because they are dealing with profitability. They would like to keep the result of what it is that has been done. But whatever it is, the contract would have brought all of these into dimensions, how the result will have to be published. Let me take a look at the models we have in the academia industry. Let's look at the academia industry models. So the first one I'm looking at is the linear model. In the linear model, you call it laissez-faire model, it's more hands-off approach. In this kind of model, the universities conduct basic research and publish their findings as usual. And in doing this, there's no real formal collaboration between the academia and the industry. And so the industry simply on their own, they independently pick those findings for their practical applications. So there's no handshake between the industry and the academia in this context. So it's like the normal publications, normal research findings being published, and then somebody in the industry simply pick it up and then find usefulness in that, and then they use it for their practical applications. But there's the one we call the triple helix model. The triple helix model. Here we have the universities. Of course, universities are actually creating knowledge. You have the industries, what they simply do is to apply the knowledge. And then you have the government as a regulatory body or agency. So three approaches here. Three organizations are involved in the triple helix model: the university, the industry, and the government. And this model was developed by Henry Egglewitz and Louis Ledesco in the 90s. It is called triple helix because it conceptualizes innovation as a complex, intertwined relationship among the three spheres that I earlier mentioned. That is the government, the industry, and the university. And the importance, they have this model actually highlights the importance of the following: intermediation, knowledge transfer, and institutional change. Then the third model I'm talking about here is the quadruple helix model. You can see here, apart from the industry, the university, and the government, a fourth dimension has been added to this, and that is a civil society, or if you like, the public. So the dimension, what has made the difference between these and the one that Ahela mentioned, is the fact that the civil society is being added to this, or the public. And in this model, it expands upon the triple helix model by adding a fourth dimension, like I mentioned before, which is the civil society or the public. In this model, it recognizes the roles of citizens, communities, and non-governmental organizations as active participants in the innovation process alongside the academia, industry, and the government. And the model particularly emphasizes the importance of the following: citizen engagement. Here you have the exchange of information between the public and policymakers. It also emphasizes social innovation, where you have a design and implementation of new solutions. You also have open innovation, where you have sourcing. In this case, you are sourcing ideas both from the external sources or context and the internal sources. And then you have responsible innovation, where you anticipate and creatively respond to changing circumstances. Let me move forward, and I want to look at the successful academia industry case studies. By doing this, I'll start from the global perspective, the global case studies. I usually like to talk about Stanford University and Silicon Valley collaboration. You know, this collaboration has been noted as a very successful one, and it has been emulated worldwide. And this has also influenced global innovation ecosystems. This collaboration dates back to the early 20th century, when you had Stanford University, or whether you had the faculty and graduates, they began to work on innovative projects. In fact, Frederick Terman, a Stanford professor then, is considered the father of Silicon Valley. He was the one that encouraged his students to start their companies, and that led to the creation of Hewlett Packard and other pioneering companies. And you have Stanford facilitating an environment of interdisciplinary research, technology, engineering, business, and they have so much contributed to Silicon Valley's diversity in technological advancement. The Google of this world, the LinkedIn of this world, the Yahoos of this world are all founded by the alumni of Stanford. So you can have an idea of what we are talking about. So you can see how a collaboration between a university and an industry could lead to this kind of wonderful companies that are doing very well. In fact, if you compare the taxes paid by these companies in their state to what is an African, if you like, you want to compare with an African budget, you'll have an idea of what we're talking about. So the other collaborative effort by Siemens and RWTH Aachen University in Germany. We have the General Electric, GE, and MIT in US. We have GlaxoSmithKline and University of Strathclyde in Scotland. We have University of California, Berkeley, US, and IBM, when they're dealing with quantum computers research. We have sustainable packaging, and that you can see in IIT Delhi and Coca-Cola in India. Then even DHL and the University of Michigan in US, they also have such collaborative effort. And then Samsung and Seoul National University in South Korea, they also have a partnership. Let's now take a look at the ones we have in Africa. Like I said, there are many of them, but we're taking a few to give us an impression that indeed we have collaborations and partnerships that are successful, even in Africa. We have, for example, the African Institute for Mathematical Sciences, AIMS, and Google. We have in South Africa, we have University of Cape Town and Cape Town Water Management Agency. We have in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa University and Ethiopian Airlines. We have in Ghana, Ashesi University and IBM. We have in Rwanda, Nyeri Limited and Carnegie Mellon University in Africa. We have in Tanzania, we have Nelson Mandela African Institution of Science and Technology and HUE. We have in Uganda, Makerere University and International Coffee Organization. We have in Ivory Coast, University Felix Houphouët-Boigny at Nestle. We have in Ghana, University of Ghana and Cocoa Industry Partnership. In Kenya, we also have the University of Nairobi and International Livestock Research Institute. Let's now come down home to Nigeria. Do we have successful academia industry collaborations and partnerships in Nigeria? I say yes, even though there are few. Let's take a look at a few of them. We have the NNPC, that is the Nigerian National Petroleum Company and Nigerian Universities. We have also MTN Nigeria and academic institutions. We have Dangote Group and Nigerian universities. We have Shell Petroleum Development Company and Nigerian universities. We have Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, and National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure. We have University of Nigeria and Nsukka and Innocent Vehicle Manufacturing. We have University of Ibadan and Nestle Nigeria PLC, University of Lagos and Unilever. We have Ladoke Akintola University of Technology and Flour Mills of Nigeria. We have Obafemi Awolowo University and Nestle. We have Federal University of Agriculture, Akure, and International Institute of Tropical Agriculture. I want to note that we have many companies actually that are friendly to research endeavors between the industries and the academia. Let me come down to my university, the Covenant University, and I want to take a look at the Covenant example. This building, we call this building Kukrit Building, and I'll be making a few comments on this. That building you're seeing there is called Kukrit, and Kukrit stands for Center for Research, Innovation, and Discovery. And so that had to be established. And in that building, we have the research clusters and laboratories. We have the central instrumentation, laboratory, and several other things that are taking place there. So that establishment has led to the handshake between the industry and the academia or our university. And another example I'd like to bring to our notice is that in our university, we have a town gown seminars being organized every semester. You must have minimum three from each department. So each department will have to organize 3 town gown seminars in a semester. And so what happens there, the industrialists, the managers in the industry, they come in here and then they talk to the staff, the faculty, the students in the university, depending on the topics of interest. And in doing that, they bring the practical experiences that they have in the industry to context to what happens in the universities. And then again, we also engage relevant industry managers as industry observers. When I have, for example, doctoral proposal defense in the department, in the colleges, post-field defense in the department, in the colleges, and then the final oral defense, the viva. Those industrialists, the observers, they don't score, no doubt, but they bring their perspectives from the industry to that viva. And so you now have an understanding of what is happening in the industry, and they can even lead to us solving the industrial problems. And the advantage there is that the student in future, having done that project, will now be relevant to that industry. And there could be development that goes on after that because that person has solved a particular industry problem. Because the observer starts right from the start at the level of proposal defense. And if there's need to tweak on the topic to make it relevant to the industrial expectations, that is being done. Of course, we also appoint senior managers, senior lecturers, the relevant persons, of course, with PhD, and some could be appointed as visiting professors in the university. There's an establishment we call Hebron Startup Lab for Business Incubation, and that is also present in that unit that I talked about, in that building, Kukrit Building. And then, of course, we have the Central Institution Research Lab, and God used me to start this. And that also, there's also a linkage as a third-party analyst to industries. And then there are career fairs that are being organized where industry officials come to campus to expose the students to their offerings. And there are job placement for some students even before graduation. And I'm saying that again, even before graduation, there are some students who have job placement in some industries because of that engagement we have with them, the town-gown relationship. And of course, we undertake internships as being done in some universities. And then portals are being created for effective management. Students also undertake mandatory, I'm using the word advisedly, mandatory excursions to relevant industries every session. And so it's not something, okay, we can do once in a while. It's like every session you go to the industries, go and learn, know what is happening there. And then we take advantage of that relationship. Of course, we have lecturers who also have their research labs in industry, hence deepening the academia-industry collaboration and partnership. We also have research collaboration between us and some industries, including the Air Force, Ericsson, and the rest of them. And then there's this involvement with Coursera on curricular and skill set development of programs. You know, like I said before, there are some skills gaps that we have in our curriculum, and there's need to update. And that updating is not just about having the CMAS as we've just had. Thank God the CMAS has also given us an opportunity to have our own expressions as a university. So we can deal with that skills gap by researching or having that partnership with the industries to understand what are the expectations. Many times they'll be complaining that we don't seem to bring employable graduates their way. So there's need for us to bridge that skill gap so as to be relevant to what is happening in the industry. Let me, as I begin to round up, let's look at rewarding opportunities in this collaboration and partnership. The gaps, it bridges the gap between theory and practice. You have innovation and problem-solving opportunity, availability of research funding, financial rewards, assets and resources. You have acquisition of talent and skills development, reduction in R&D budget of the industry, because when you have this handshake, the industries wouldn't need to spend so much money knowing that we are working together to give them the perspective that they want. And then you also facilitate commercialization of intellectual property. There's access to the market, the real practical market in the industry. And then you can also have some validations. There's networking opportunities and professional development. There's this regulatory compliance and standards because, for example, they have to maintain standards in what they do. And so there's that compliance. You are forced to comply with what happens in the industry. And then this result in global competitiveness and collaboration. And then social impact and sustainable development are deepened. You also influence governmental policies and advocacies. Of course, it will lead to enhanced teaching capacity. Because when a lecturer is teaching from the practical base, it makes a whole lot of difference because it's what he has touched. And so what he's teaching to the students will be different from just having the theoretical perspective. Then you have knowledge and technological transfer. These are opportunities. This results in upgraded structures for the universities and grants for the faculty. You have enhanced reputation and career advancement. And then the students' engagement and employability. You know, when that handshake is deep, the students that are from that university or those universities will be having opportunities for employment. And then you now simulate entrepreneurial culture in institutions of learning, access to research and consulting services of the university, and then access to up-to-date knowledge base. And of course, you could have government giving you waivers in terms of tax waivers, incentives, and the rest of them. So let me make these few recommendations, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is my understanding that there's need for us to have a deeper handshake between the academia and the industry, such that the researchers in the academia will identify and facilitate solutions in the industries, providing solutions to those challenges. And I also recommend that there's need to establish industrial research support units in the universities, and that should be a priority, so that we can have this deep handshake. A time was that you could even have a director in charge of this town-gown kind of relationship. And there should be a closer involvement and engagement between the doctoral students undertaking their thesis in the universities and industry experts for the good of the society. Who says we can't appoint supervisors and co-supervisors from amongst the industrialists? Of course, it has to be those who have met the requirement. For example, persons who have PhDs in the industry. So we can appoint supervisors and co-supervisors that can bridge that gap between the theory and practice, or between the industry and the academia. And it will be needful for more of our colleagues to seek sabbatical placement in the industry in order to deepen this academia-industry collaboration and partnership. Research breakthroughs. When we are having breakthroughs in the academia, let's not keep quiet. Let those breakthroughs be communicated to the industries. Let them know what is happening, and that's how this partnership will be coming to fruition. And then let the universities also engage the relevant sectoral groups on research talks. Like I mentioned, we have the different sectoral groups. Engage them on research, communication, and talks. What stops us from having consultancy services and outlets for those universities who are yet to have them? And then have rewarding commercialization policies. In case we don't have, there's need to have rewarding commercialization policies. It will interest our colleagues, knowing that there's something to gain apart from just depending on salaries. And then who says we can't have industrial parks established in the universities? I gave us earlier on the collaboration between Silicon Valley, and Stanford. And it's a highly rewarding collaboration. Then I also recommend that the patent that we have should be awarded with high points in appointment and promotion criteria in our various universities. Let's give visibility to patents in our various universities. And who says we can't appoint professors of practice? Recently, I think it was last year, we had a case where Federal University of Ekiti appointed somebody, one of our sons, as a professor of practice. That can be done. Usually persons who have had a lot of experiences in the industry who can be a blessing to the university. And then there's need to also have academic researchers featuring in industry journals and magazines for visibility. And then attendance at industrial exhibitions and conferences should be highly encouraged. Let me conclude by saying this. Obviously, both collaborations and partnerships involve working together towards common goals. Collaborations are typically shorter term and more flexible, focusing on specific projects, while partnerships are long-term, strategic, and involve broader scopes of activities and commitments. Obviously, there are various approaches and forms of engagement for collaborations and partnerships. Like I noted before, there are successful examples of academic industry collaboration and partnership worldwide, but we need more examples in Nigeria. It is my conclusion that there should be an intentional and deeper relationship between the academia and the industry for rewarding town-gown, that should be town-gown collaboration partnership. These have been a few references that I have here. And I want to sincerely thank all of us for listening to me in the last 42 or 3 minutes or 45 minutes or thereabout. Thank you for having me. Thank you and God bless.
Yeah, I think Professor Akan deserves a clap from us, and it has been exciting for the few minutes that you have been with us. We sincerely appreciate that moment of dispensing very interesting information to us. It's an opportunity for us to ask questions. I can see that there are 11 hands raised up as at now. But it is difficult for us, it will be difficult for us to actually take, I can see the number of hands raised up rising. It will be difficult for us to take all the questions because we have only 15 minutes for the question. So it is in view of this that we'll do a selective one. We'll take just 3. I have also noted some questions that some people wrote down on the, what is it called? On the question and answer platform. I will present it to Professor Akan to answer now. Can I, Coco Daniel, you have the floor. Coco Daniel, you have the floor. You should unmute yourself. You should unmute yourself and speak, please. Coco Daniel. Okay, if it's not there, can we take Taiova Lokosu? Taiova Lokosu, you should please ask your question quickly. We are short of time. Taiova Lokosu, please unmute yourself and speak. But let me confirm, I hope everyone is hearing me.
Yes, we are hearing you.
Okay. Because I've invited 2 people now, they have not spoken. That's why I'm worried.
Yeah, we can hear you very well, Dan Coordinator.
Okay.
Dan Coordinator, we can hear you as panelists, but I am not sure if the participants can answer you because I was in that mode previously. So probably there is a mix-up somewhere, or you can ask them to type so that you read the questions.
Okay. Professor Akan, let me give you 2 questions here that I've picked up from question and answer. He said, how possible will it be for an avenue where academic researches are showcased, like an exhibition to the industry, from where the industry will know that some wonderful researches are being done in Nigeria? That is one. Then there is another question from one Titilola Salisu. He said, is it allowed in the university to have a co-supervisor from the industry? If yes, is it recognized by NUC? So these are 2 questions you probably can attend to while I pick the other one.
Okay, yes, thank you, Dan Coordinator. The first one is about, I was talking about trade fairs, where you have industries come up with their products. And apart from that, we normally have some trade fairs. For example, I think the NUC, they usually organize once in a while, bringing the industries and the academia together, bringing the product. So we have such opportunities. And even if we don't have, we can encourage the industries to have such opportunities, where products that are being manufactured are brought together for people to be sensitized. So that can be done. As for the second question, I said that advisedly. I said for persons who are qualified, for example, if somebody has a PhD and meet up with your regulatory requirement in the university, every university has its own requirement for appointment of supervisors. And so if you want to appoint a supervisor, you must meet those requirements. And I'm saying we can take it further and engage our colleagues who have PhDs in the industries if they meet with the requirement. So why not? And it's one of the ways, even if they are not main supervisors, you can imagine a scenario where you have a co-supervisor that is working in a relevant industry to what the student is working on. So the academia or the lecturer or the professor will bring the perspective from the academia, the theoretical perspective, And this man that is a co-professor from the industry will bring the practical perspective. So that balancing will make that thesis, if you like, much more productive. So I'm not saying you should just bring somebody from the industry. I'm saying for persons who meet your requirement. Obviously, if you have a PhD or if you don't have a PhD, you have no business providing a PhD. So I'm not saying that you have to breach your requirement, provided they're able to meet your requirement. Why not? But it will give us more insight into the thesis than just having persons who don't have the practical experience. That was my take.
Okay, thank you. I've picked a number of questions and a number of them look similar. Let me read this from Yewande Utman Akan. He said, with increasing financial burden on the university, which had led to poor funding, can we have viable research support services that could stand the test of time? That's number one. From Joseph Wilson, then my question is on industry and the academia collaboration in Covenant University. It seems very fruitful. It will encourage participants if he could tell us how much research grants Covenant University has received in the last 2 years. I'm not sure we will have that value offhand, but at least that's an idea. Then from Dorothy Aboyi, he said, thank you, Prof. How can industries in Nigeria be made to accept this handshake? Because even for a sabbatical leave placement in industrial experience, for lecturers seems to be impossible for the industry. And lastly, that's from Israel Auchago. He said, how can government, NUC, and VCs make the collaboration and partnership to work in Nigerian university? Let me allow you to deal with that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Okay, about the poor funding. That's the whole essence of the lecture. We are saying we've not been taking advantage of this partnership and collaboration. I gave us example of Silicon Valley and Stanford. Very viable. You are aware of Yahoo now. You are aware of all the other things that I mentioned. Things are from that partnership. So that we are not doing that before doesn't mean that we cannot do it. So I'm saying that we need to bridge that gap, that research support. And I gave a recommendation. The starting point could be the establishment of a center. You can call it whatever you want to call it. You can call it R&D center or industry partnership center or whatever. I gave you an idea of what we do here, that we have what we call concrete building, where we have a center that has this kind of handshake with the industry. So you can call it whatever name it is, but the point is, let us bridge the gap between theory and practice, between the academia and the industry. So I don't see any university not being interested in this. I don't think, it's just that we're not taking advantage of this in the past. So let's have that kind of research support. Let's start by having a unit in charge of this, and they'll come up with a lot of innovative ideas to bridge this gap. And then talk about the research grant. Obviously, I can't tell you offhand now the research grants that we have. But let me give you an idea. Just one grant that we have here in bioinformatics has given us this, we have a center, a World Bank center here. And as a result of that, we have a lot of international students as a result of that. Because as you are getting international students, the funding possibilities are there for them their school fees to be paid and all of that. So there are other grants won by, colleagues, lecturers, and as an institution, but I can't give you that offhand. Then talking about, will industries accept this? Why not? Why not? So let's start first. Let's bridge the gap first. They also have their needs in the industry. You'll be surprised to note that they've been waiting for us in the academia. maybe you can also take advantage of the persons who have done this kind of partnership before from the academia. I mentioned to us some of the institutions in Nigeria who have done this before. We can learn from them. You'll be surprised that the academia will be looking for us. Okay, let me give you a typical example. When I brought the idea of having a central lab in our university, you know, the idea is an industry will be more comfortable having a lab somewhere that it has confidence in, who can be doing, you know, the analysis for them, instead of beginning to be buying equipment all over the place. So if they have a place in the academia that can give them this kind of good report in the analysis, they'll be more interested in that, instead of buying equipment all over the place. You know, so let's start first. You can never tell how this can end, but I can assure you, even from experiences from other people, that is actually very rewarding. And the last one is about government, NUC, and VCs, if they can support this. Like I said before, I don't see anybody that would be against progress, having this deep handshake between the industry and the. It's just that we need to take advantage and start. You know, let's not look at the past. Let's not look at what had happened in the past. It's part of the reason why we are having this kind of opportunity, this kind of lecture or workshop, so that we can take advantage and go a step further to see how we can bridge the gap between the industry and the academia. I think I've taken a few of those questions. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Really, it has been an exciting and a rewarding moment. I really want to appreciate you for the incisive presentation. And in the comment section, obviously, people actually appreciated the presentation. But there is a challenge for the committee of the provost deans of the Nigerian University, from the dimension that as planners of this particular doctoral academic training, that it may be necessary for us to also plan what looks like an interrelationship between industries and universities, that it may start as a small thing that can grow. That's a comment that was raised by someone. That's one patient, Usip from University of Uyo. Second, the planners plan a collaborative meeting between researchers and industry, so that we rely on this group as a mediator, patient Usip. And commonly, there are questions here that people, though I'm not expecting you to answer this, because our time is gone, people are saying, how will humanities, that some of these things are much more relevant to scientists, that how will people in the Faculty of Humanities benefit? So I know you may not...
Maybe just to say this, my brother, Prof, just to note this, when we say industry, it's not just about manufacturing. It's not just about a plant.
Yeah.
You know, so let's not have that, okay, industry means Coca-Cola, a building of Coca-Cola and all of that. That is not the understanding about industry. Those persons who are practitioners, practical practitioners in your areas of interest, is part of what we are talking about. So don't look at a plant, a building. Everyone in the academia will have an industry, like I was talking about industry observer. Persons in mathematics here, English, we have industry observers doing a Viva. So it's not only about the engineering, the sciences, and the rest of that. That's the perspective. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Professor Akan. It has been an exciting moment with you, and it has been very educative. So many people are asking for the slide. Again, I want to tell all attendees that the YouTube link to this presentation will be made available to all of us via email by the Secretariat. So it's on that note that I want to say thank you, Professor Akan. We're grateful for your presentation today.
Thank you, sir.